Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I would like to talk about my experience moving to a completely Spanish speaking country, that is Mexico, 10 years back. For the people who don't know, I moved to Mexico in 2012, almost 10 years back. And at that time, I think people didn't speak English at all because I feel now people are more aware of English words or vocabulary, and people want to learn English. And I see that there are more Mexicans who are speaking English. But 10 years back, I feel they didn't speak this much English at that time. So I just thought I will share my experience because many of you who are moving to Mexico are really worried about how you're going to survive in a Spanish speaking country. All right, so without wasting any time, let's get into the video. First and foremost, when I moved to Mexico, I had no idea that this was a completely Spanish-speaking country. I thought people around the world, they speak English because English is an international language. So I had no idea, and at that time, there were no, YouTube was not that popular, or there were not many channels from Mexico. So I really had no idea how the country is or how it's going to be. So I just followed my husband because he had a project here. We had no other choice but to move to Mexico as a family. So when we moved to Mexico, the first thing is finding a house. How my husband found the house at that time was going around with his Mexican colleague. Thankfully, people here are very helpful. They help you, especially if you're a foreigner. So if you are looking for a house here, I would suggest go through a realtor, or check with your colleagues, Mexican local colleagues, who can help you out with that. So that's how we found our house. My husband's colleague, who was a Mexican, helped him out. We tried looking for a house near the office and the school area. So that's how we found a house, and he was a mediator or translator between the owner and us. So that's how we found the house. And even in the school, my husband took the help of his friend. They went together, and that's how we got the admission. And another good thing in schools is usually there is a teacher who speaks English, an English teacher, and they will definitely help you, being a translator between the principal and you. So even if there are any meetings and if the principal doesn't speak English, they always make sure that they have someone who can translate things to you and you can understand. And the next thing, how I survived was, for example, whenever we need to buy things for the house, like groceries, I used to avoid going to local markets, or, the markets, weekly markets. Sometimes we were in Mexico City at that time, and there used to be these weekly markets, but I used to avoid going there because without the language, it's really difficult to, communicate with locals in a local market. So I always used to go to supermarkets. I never preferred going to a local market because there you have to talk. In supermarket, you just have to go pick up things and come back. So that was another thing that you can, that's another thing that you can do, is instead of going to local markets, go and buy things from the supermarket. And then coming to commuting from one place to another, moving from one place to another. In Mexico City, we didn't have a car because we were planning only for a 2 year stay. So, and also Mexico City is a big city, and the parking is a big problem in Mexico City 10 years back. So we didn't think of buying a car. We were going either in taxi or in public transport. And in those days, even Uber was not that popular. So there were these yellow taxis which you just, show your hand and they stop, and you just tell them the location. Like, for example, if you have to go to Polanco, you just tell them Polanco and they will take you. And you just have to tell them, where exactly your place is. So that we used to just manage with actions, or, and to be frank, I learned some of the Spanish words from my kids' school or from the kids' books, because they were very small. They were like 4 and 6 years old, and they used to learn Spanish in school, and they used to come home with homework. And to help them with the homework, I used to translate everything in Google Translate and then help them with the homework. So that's how I picked up few vocabulary of Spanish. And also by going to supermarket, I knew few vocabularies of fruits, vegetables, because it's always written there. So that's how I picked up the vocabulary. And the next thing is, so after school comes where, the problem comes when you need to talk with a plumber or an electrician who visits your house? Usually, if you're renting a house, the owner is the one who takes care of these plumbing and other issues of the house. So if the owner knows that you can't speak Spanish, then he makes sure, usually they're kind enough to make sure that they tell the problem to the plumber or the electrician, or they accompany the plumber and electrician, and they can help you with that. If that is not happening, then you have to try with your actions or with Google Translate. Now we have Google Translate, so that's definitely helpful. But I would say that people here are very kind, and they try to help if you don't know the language. And one good thing about Spanish is that most of the vocabulary sounds similar to English. So if you don't know some vocabulary, you can manage with English words, and they do understand, and they are very helpful. So as I mentioned, these are the things how I picked up the language, from the vocabulary, from by helping my kids in their school homework, by Google Translate, and of course with actions with actions and with Google Translate, you can survive. That's not a problem at all here in Mexico. Now, let me tell you the challenges that you would face if you don't know the language. The main problem would be in banks. Most of them, they might not speak English, and that's where you might have a challenge communicating to the manager or to the person there in the bank. And another place that you can face the problem or a challenge is in the local markets. In case you don't want to go to supermarket, you want to go to the local market and buy things, you will definitely face problem. And another place where you might have a challenge is with the hospitals or with the doctors. Many doctors, they do speak English, but when it is the names of the disease, or the names when they're trying to explain some complicated words, it's little difficult for you to understand, and you kind of get frustrated. Initially, that wasn't a problem for me because my kids were small, so we need to visit pediatrician every now and then. And though the doctor claims that they can speak English, but when they try to explain some medical problems or medical things, you kind of don't understand them because they don't speak that fluently, and that's where you kind of get frustrated, thinking, why am I here? So these are few places where you might face challenge if you don't know the language. But I can assure you that if you communicate more with local people, or if you're a person who's already working in a company where you're surrounded with people who speak Spanish, then you would easily pick up the language. Now, let me tell you how I improved my Spanish. I don't claim that I speak Spanish really well, but now I'm in a place where I can really understand Spanish, and I can communicate, my what I want to say. Maybe not grammatically correct, but I can definitely communicate what I want to say to the other person. So let me tell you how I picked up. As I said, initially from kids vocabulary and from supermarkets, and then I went to like maybe maximum 4 or 5 Spanish classes. That's all I have been to, because I couldn't continue because of many issues. I just went to 5 classes, and I felt that I picked up the basic grammar from there. And then after that, I felt even though if I keep going to classes, I might not improve because I was not really practicing. I was only learning the grammar part and keeping it in my mind, but that was of no use if I was not practicing. So that's why that was one of the reasons that I stopped taking classes. And then I thought maybe I should improve by talking to people. And to be frank, I'm not a very not an extrovert. I am little introvert, and I don't really go out for these breakfasts with mamas, or I don't really hang out with my Mexican friends. I go work and come back. I'm not a person who hangs out. So probably if you are one of that kind, if you like going out for breakfast, because here usually in schools the mamas have these breakfast plans, and if you like all that, you can hang out with mothers of your kids' school, or you can hang out with your colleagues, and you can definitely improve your Spanish. And one more tip to improve your Spanish is watching Mexican or Spanish series. You might find tons of them on Netflix. You can just watch. Initially, you can watch with subtitles. Slowly, when you feel that you are able to understand, you can remove the subtitles and try to listen. And that way you improve your listening skills in Spanish. So these are a few tips and tricks that you can do to when you come to Mexico. And don't you worry that you cannot survive because of the Spanish speaking country. We did that yeah, 10 years back, and there are many other families who have come before us and who've been living here for a long time, and now they speak Spanish like any Mexican. So don't worry about that, you will survive. I hope this video is useful to you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care. Bye.